When Mu Chen descended upon the mountain peak and gazed ahead, he saw a vast valley beyond it. The valley was shrouded in a dark hue, filled with a terrifying aura of death. The intensity of this death aura was so strong that it had formed a dark cloud hovering above the valley, with strands of black rain falling from the cloud. This rain, too, was nothing more than death aura in liquid form. The death aura here far exceeded anything Mu Chen had encountered before. Within the valley, Mu Chen could vaguely make out more than 10 dark figures. These figures sat motionlessly, exuding an overwhelming death aura. The strength of their death aura was even stronger than that of the 8th grade beast spirit they had previously encountered. Clearly, these dark figures were also 8th grade beast spirits, but they were exceptional among them. Each of these figures was more powerful than the one they had defeated before. What is this place? 9 Nether and the others had also landed beside Mu Chen. They stared at the valley with faces ashen, their eyes filled with horror and dread. Mu Chen shook his head and said, "The 8th grade beast spirits we hunted earlier probably wanted to enter this valley, but were forcefully driven out. From the previous traces and the injuries on the 8th grade beast spirits, it was clear that they had clashed with the beast spirits inside the valley. However, in the end, they lost the battle and had no choice but to leave. 9 Nether nodded lightly. Death aura, for beast spirits, was like the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in their cultivation. Thus, this place was a treasure trove for most beast spirits. Although beast spirits didn't possess great intelligence, their instincts would still drive them to seek out places of powerful cultivation. However, judging by the current situation, it seemed that this valley had long been claimed by other beast spirits, not allowing any others to step foot inside. There are at least more than 10 8th grade beast spirits in there, Han Shan said, his face slightly pale. That's equivalent to a formation of 10 8th grade supremes. If they charge out, we might not even be able to escape. Mu Chen's black eyes locked onto the valley, and a black light appeared between his brows. His annihilation eye opened slightly, and the black light pierced through the space, cutting through the thick death aura that lingered in the valley. The valley was vast and lifeless. The number of beast spirits within was not many, but each one exuded a terrifying death aura, clearly at the 8th grade beast spirit level. As Mu Chen peered deeper, he noticed that even these 8th grade beast spirits could only stay on the outskirts of the valley. In the deepest part of the valley, a swirling black light could be seen. It appeared mysterious and unfathomable. Although the death aura was even denser there, these 8th grade beast spirits dared not venture further in. What could be in the depths of that valley? Mu Chen's gaze flickered slightly, and he was filled with suspicion. After a moment of contemplation, his annihilation eye fully opened, the black light flaring and piercing the void to directly peer into the deepest part of the valley. The death aura was penetrated by the light of the annihilation eye, revealing the scenery to Mu Chen's sight. In the depth of the valley, there seemed to be a vast black swamp. The mud in the swamp, upon closer inspection, appeared to be composed of condensed death aura. A terrifying, cold, and sinister energy lingered in the air, and it even seemed to be polluting the spiritual energy of heaven and earth here. Mu Chen observed the swamp, and after a moment, his heart suddenly stirred. His vision seemed to be drawn towards the depths of the swamp. There, a piece of withered wood had grown, and sitting atop this wood was a figure. The figure was lifeless, but there was no death aura surrounding it. At a glance, it appeared as though it was a person who had just died. However, when Mu Chen noticed this figure, his pupils suddenly contracted. In that instant, he sensed an extremely intense feeling of danger emanating from it. The sense of threat was far beyond any 8th grade beast spirit Mu Chen had encountered before. The figure appeared to be in a deep slumber, yet it seemed to sense something, as its eyes fluttered slightly, as though it was about to open them. Mu Chen quickly withdrew his gaze, his mind racing. Although this figure lacked the stiffness and death aura that typical beast spirits had, Mu Chen knew deep down that this must also be a beast spirit. But this beast spirit was far stronger than the others. It might even be a 9th grade beast spirit. At the thought, Mu Chen was shaken. Such a being would be comparable to a 9th grade supreme, at the peak of the supreme stage. Only by reaching this level could one have the qualifications to challenge the Earth Supreme level. If this 9th grade beast spirit charges out, with just its own strength, it should be able to slaughter their entire team. However, why would this 9th grade beast spirit stay alone in this swamp? And based on its position, it doesn't seem to be in cultivation. Rather, it looks as if it's guarding something, waiting for something. Mu Chen's thoughts raced, and he quickly seemed to notice something. The black light between his brows flickered, and his gaze once again shot toward the depths of the valley, directly focusing on the center of the swamp. searching all around. In the center of the swamp, surrounded by death energy. He sensed some unusual fluctuations. Chen's exploration didn't last long, because those peculiar fluctuations were too striking in this swamp filled with death energy. After just a few breaths, Chen's gaze was fixed on a certain spot in the swamp, and soon, an intense look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. What appeared before Chen's eyes was a water pool, about several dozen feet in size. The water was clear and clean, exuding a rich aura of spiritual energy. Furthermore, within that pool, green lotuses were growing, full of life and vitality. Chen stared in astonishment at this pool. If it were outside the beast tomb, he would have paid little attention to such a pool. But here, in this place devoid of any life force, the sudden appearance of such a vibrant pool was certainly strange. Moreover, the life force in this pool seemed unusually powerful. However, this vitality only existed within the pool itself. Not even the shore radiated it. Therefore, the surrounding swamp remained filled with death energy, while the green lotuses in the pool became the only point of life in the area. Generally speaking, in such a dead zone, no life force should exist, unless a creature like the treasure beast had fallen here, leaving behind a lingering aura for protection. But Chen had already carefully sensed the area, and he had not detected any lingering aura from any powerful beings. Thus, this pool full of vitality must have been born from the very essence of heaven and earth. Chen's thoughts turned quickly. Although the death energy here was overwhelming, as the saying goes, after extreme death comes rebirth, there is a balance in the world. When death energy reaches its peak, life will inevitably emerge from within, and what is born from this is a rare treasure of heaven and earth. This pool must be the birthplace of a miraculous treasure. Chen's eyes gleamed with excitement, and he immediately activated his annihilation eye at full power. Without hesitation, he directed the dark beam straight toward the pool. As the light hit the water, it gradually became clearer in his vision. And Chen's eyes widened in disbelief. At the bottom of the pool, there was a green lotus about the size of a fist, growing quietly. It was crystal clear, untainted by any dust, and exuded an astonishing life force, which made the pool's water even clearer. The green lotus slightly opened, and in the center of the lotus, there was a lotus seed, as white as jade. The surface of the seed was covered with mysterious patterns, not man-made, but drawn by the forces of heaven and earth, as if it were brewing with intense vitality and incredibly pure spiritual energy. This is, Chen stared at the fist-sized green lotus. After a brief moment, he couldn't help but take a deep breath, murmuring to himself, 9 revolutions green lotus. The so-called 9 revolution spirit lotus was an incredibly rare treasure of heaven and earth. This lotus absorbed the vitality of heaven and earth to grow and was filled with profound mysteries. It was said to have the power to reverse life and death, shrouded in deep mystery. Moreover, the most alluring feature was that it was rumored that consuming and refining this lotus could greatly increase the chances of breaking through the Supreme Realm's barrier. As everyone knew, breaking through to the Earth's Supreme Realm in the Great Thousand Worlds was extremely difficult. Countless prodigies had exhausted their talent and energy in the 9th grade Supreme Realm, halting at that stage, unable to take that one fateful step that would change their destiny. Because of this, treasures that could help break through the Supreme Realm's barriers were incredibly precious, beyond description. And right now, this 9 revolution spirit lotus was one of them. Faced with such a rare treasure, even Chen couldn't help but feel his heartbeat accelerate. The Earth Supreme Realm, wasn't this the very level he had always dreamed of? Only by stepping into this realm would no one be able to look down upon him in this world. Whoosh! Chen took a deep breath, struggling to pull his gaze away. On the peak, he opened his eyes, and deep within his gaze, a trace of fervor still surged. At this moment, he finally understood why so many powerful beast spirits had gathered here. Even attracting a 9th grade beast spirit, they were all here for the 9 revolutions green lotus. As long as they could consume this item, even though they were already dead, they could still give birth to life force, existing between life and death, becoming immortals, and unlocking a different path of cultivation, transforming into anomalies of the world. This held an irresistible allure for the muddled beast spirits. Their instincts would drive them to stop at nothing to obtain it.so. If he wanted to seize the 9 revolutions green lotus, it would undoubtedly incite all the beast spirits here to go wild. At that time, he would have to face the crazed pursuit of a group of 8th grade beast spirits and a 9th grade beast spirit. Such a pursuit would likely wipe out even the top clans teams. Therefore, if he were rational, Abandoning the item would obviously be the wisest choice. But Chen licked his lips, and a trace of fervor flickered in his black eyes. Such a rare treasure, he really didn't want to let it go. Since that's the case, then he would have to take the risk. How's it going? On the peak, Nether looked at Chen, who had opened his eyes, and immediately asked. This place was dangerously perilous, and it seemed no simple matter. Chen noticed that everyone was staring at him. So he gave a faint smile and then spoke softly. In this valley, there are 18 8th grade beast spirits and 1 9th grade beast spirit. Hiss. When they heard Chen's final words, even though they were prepared, they couldn't help but gasp. They had anticipated the presence of 8th grade beast spirits, but they never expected a 9th grade beast spirit to be here. A 9th grade beast spirit was comparable to a 9th grade supreme, and even among the various clans, such beings could hold elite positions and become top-tier elites in their clan. Nether also looked grave. A 9th grade supreme was something only the 3 sovereigns could reach in the entire Great Luo Heaven domain. I planned to go in. However, just as they were still shocked, Chen's next words left them dumbfounded. Even Nether stared at him in astonishment, clearly unable to understand why he would be so reckless. The formation inside was so terrifying that, not just their team, but even if they gathered other top-tier teams, they would still be annihilated instantly. Chen looked at the stunned group and said, "You don't need to follow me and I'll go alone." With such a terrifying formation, if they went in, they would only drag him down. Han Shan and the others exchanged looks, and in the end, Nether frowned and said, "You're planning to use the thunder-devouring beast heart?" She understood Chen quite well. Although his strength couldn't be measured by normal standards, unless he was given a strong army, relying solely on the power of a formation master, he might be able to contend with the terrifying formation in the valley. But clearly, they didn't have that condition now. That left only one possibility. Chen intended to use the thunder-devouring beast heart. But once you lose the thunder-devouring beast heart, Bai Ming from the Phoenix clan will have no more concerns. Han Shan couldn't help but say, Bai Ming was no pushover. Previously, Chen had used the thunder-devouring beast heart to intimidate him, but once it was gone, Bai Ming would surely not let Chen off. Chen smiled and looked at the valley filled with death energy. The thunder-devouring beast heart was only used to intimidate him. Bai Ming isn't worth me using it against him. His words were calm, but they carried a certain confidence. Bai Ming was indeed strong. Based on Chen's estimation, he likely possessed the strength of an 8th grade supreme, and not only that. He wielded a quasi-sacred artifact and was a cunning and ruthless 8th grade supreme. His real combat power would undoubtedly surpass the 8th grade beast spirits they had dealt with before. However, while Bai Ming was powerful, it didn't mean Chen was a soft target. If it came to a direct confrontation, Chen was confident he could make it difficult for Bai Ming to succeed. Furthermore, Chen was now at the peak of the 6th grade supreme and only one step away from reaching the 7th grade supreme. If it were a normal time, he would need nearly a month of intense cultivation to attempt a breakthrough. But right now, he had an opportunity. This opportunity naturally came from the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus. Although its greatest effect would only manifest when breaking through to the Earth's supreme realm, it contained a vast and pure amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy. After consuming it, Chen would certainly be able to harness its power and take that crucial step, truly stepping into the 7th grade supreme. Once he reached the 7th grade supreme, his battle power would skyrocket. Even without the thunder-devouring beast heart, he would have nothing to fear from Bai Ming. Seeing that, Chen had made up his mind. The 9 Nether and the others no longer attempted to persuade him. Knowing the power of the thunder-devouring beast heart, while the beast spirit array in this valley was formidable, it likely wouldn't withstand the impact of that item. Be careful. We'll leave first. 9 Nether nodded. Staying here would offer no help to Chen, and if something unexpected happened, it would only distract him. Keep an eye on this area for me, Chen instructed. He didn't want to go through all the trouble of dealing with the beast spirits only for someone else to reap the rewards. 9 Nether nodded. Then without delay, swiftly turned and left. Han Shan and the others, though curious about Chen's intentions, wisely chose not to ask. They quickly followed 9 Nether out of the area, and Chen watched them leave. And once they disappeared from sight, he turned his gaze back to the valley. He took a deep breath and clenched his hand, summoning the silver heart that flickered with thunder radiance into his palm. It's all on you now, buddy, Chen murmured. In a flash, he transformed into a streak of light and shot straight into the deathly, aura-filled valley. As he approached the valley, the death aura became denser, and black death clouds gathered in the sky. Thin black raindrops fell, casting the world in an eerie chill. In such a cold environment, the spiritual energy in Mu Chen's body began to slow, and a chilling aura spread across his skin, as if it were trying to invade his flesh. Realizing the danger, Mu Chen didn't hesitate. He activated the Dragon Phoenix body. Golden light erupted from his body, accompanied by the sounds of dragon roars and phoenix cries, which shook the death aura away. Whoosh! With the protection of the Dragon Phoenix body, Mu Chen charged directly into the valley shrouded by the death clouds. As soon as he stepped into the valley, the black figures sitting cross-legged within it suddenly opened their hollow eyes and let out an angry roar. Swish! Several black shadows shot out first, transforming into streaks of black light that shot straight for Mu Chen, trying to encircle and kill him. Mu Chen, seeing the incoming shadows, dared not engage. He knew that if he got entangled, he would never escape this valley. He took a deep breath and changed his hand seals. The true phoenix spirit, which had been coiled on his arm, suddenly gathered behind him, and as spiritual light surged, a pair of giant phoenix wings spread wide. Boom! With the spread of the phoenix wings, Mu Chen's speed surged immediately. He darted through the blockade of several 8th-grade beast spirits like a ghost, heading deeper into the valley. Roar! The other 8th-grade beast spirits, seeing the failed interception, immediately roared in fury. They all stood up and charged at Mu Chen, surrounding him for a brutal attack. Whoosh! Whoosh! With the power of the phoenix wings, Mu Chen's speed reached an incredible level. He nimbly weaved through the 8th-grade beast spirits' defensive lines, exploiting their lack of intelligence and repeatedly finding gaps in their encirclement, pushing further into the valley. After several minutes of constant evasion and pursuit, Mu Chen finally stepped into the Death Chi swamp. As he entered the swamp, deep within it, a 9th-grade beast spirit, sitting on a dead tree stump, opened its eyes. Unlike the hollow eyes of the 8th-grade beast spirits, its eyes now glimmered with a trace of light, revealing more intelligence than before. Roar! The 9th-grade beast spirit turned to face Mu Chen's direction, and with a low growl, it punched out across the distance. Boom! The punch shattered the space before it, creating crackling lines in the air. The vast, oppressive death aura surged through the cracks in space and instantly reached Mu Chen, violently attacking him. The terrifying wave of death energy swept forward. Mu Chen's sealing technique shifted, and his body, which had been charging forward, instantly froze. Then, like a heavy stone weighing thousands of pounds, he fell from the sky and landed on the ground. The death energy surge passed overhead, shattering a massive mountain wall into pieces. Although he skillfully avoided the brunt of the death energy, Mu Chen was still shaken by the aftershock, his blood and chi surging violently within him that he couldn't help but feel alarmed. 9th-grade beast spirits were truly terrifying. In a direct confrontation with his current strength, even using all his means, it would be impossible for him to last more than a few rounds against a 9th-grade beast spirit. Meanwhile, deep inside, the 9th-grade beast spirit noticed Mu Chen had avoided the attack but didn't pursue him. It didn't want to leave the area of the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus, fearing unforeseen circumstances. However, Mu Chen knew that to use the thunder-devouring beast heart, he had to lure it away. His mind quickly shifted, and he changed direction, clearly intending to delve deeper into the Death Chi swamp along its edge. Behind him, the 8th-grade beast spirits had been chasing him, but they couldn't catch up to Mu Chen's full speed. Roar! The 9th-grade beast spirit sensed Mu Chen's intent. As Mu Chen ventured deeper into the swamp, it could no longer sit idle. It roared, and the death energy surged like a storm. Its feet stomped fiercely, and in the blink of an eye, its figure disappeared, only to reappear at the edge of the sky. When the 9th-grade beast spirit entered Mu Chen's field of vision, he immediately felt the pressure in the world intensify. His skin tingled with pain, an indication of a powerful, imminent danger. Without hesitation, Mu Chen stopped, his phoenix wings flapping as he swiftly changed direction and ran in the opposite way. Behind him, the 9th-grade beast spirit closed in quickly, with the 8th-grade beast spirits roaring as they followed closely. Though they were powerful, Their intelligence was clearly lacking. What shocked Chen, however, was the speed of the ninth-grade beast spirit. Even with the power of the true phoenix spirit, it was rapidly closing the gap. In just a few minutes, the terrible pressure from behind had already started to envelop him. He could smell the death energy emanating from the ninth-grade beast spirit. At this rate, the ninth-grade beast spirit would catch up soon. Chen's eyes flickered slightly, and he took a deep breath, moving his body to appear atop a hill. He then turned and looked back at the rolling wave of death energy coming toward him. He extended his hand from his sleeve, and a silver heart slowly pulsed in his palm, bringing with it the sound of thunder. Almost there, Chen muttered to himself, then his eyes sharpened. With a flick of his hand, the silver heart transformed into a beam of silver light, shooting toward the incoming death energy. The silver light streaked across the sky, hurtling toward the ninth-grade beast spirit and the many eighth-grade beast spirits. A faint rumbling sound seemed to reverberate, carrying an intent to destroy. Though the silver light appeared unremarkable, the ninth-grade beast spirit's body, which had been rushing forward, was suddenly stopped in its tracks. Its hollow eyes locked onto the silver light, though it lacked intelligence. Its natural instincts made it sense the aura of annihilation emanating from the seemingly insignificant silver light. Although it was a dead creature, if that silver light struck, it would likely be reduced to ash. In that instant, the ninth-grade beast spirit instinctively recoiled, quickly fleeing, driven by its survival instinct. Otherwise, it would surely be obliterated. Boom! Its instincts were formidable, but the eighth-grade beast spirits trailing behind were not as quick. They continued their charge, and when the ninth-grade beast spirit pulled back, it collided with the beast spirit horde, causing chaos and confusion. The ninth-grade beast spirit's retreat was temporarily stalled. Buzz. In that brief moment, the silver light appeared before them. It seemed to quiver slightly, and then, with a deafening roar, the terrifying sound of thunder erupted from the silver light. Boom. Like the world-shattering divine thunder descending from the heavens, the terrifying explosion ripped the earth beneath them apart. The shockwaves sent ripples across the land, and in just a few breaths, the sound could be heard clearly within 1,000 miles. The sky was filled with an overwhelming thunder radiance, which spread down like a thick, sticky thunder liquid. In that instant, the entire world seemed to turn silver. Even the dense, deathly clouds that shrouded the area were pierced by the thunder radiance, violently dissipating in an instant. A terrifying wave of energy brewed, preparing to erupt. The thunder radiance reflected in Chen's pupils. He stared at the earth-shattering spectacle, and a look of horror emerged in his eyes. Clearly, the power of the thunder-devouring beast heart was far beyond his expectations. Such power could truly destroy heaven and earth. Below the Earth's supreme realm, no one could likely withstand such a terrifying attack. Without hesitation, Chen made a quick decision. His phoenix wings beat furiously, and his body retreated in the opposite direction of the thunder-devouring beast heart. He knew that if he got too close, he would undoubtedly be dragged into the devastation. As he retreated, Chen's hand seals changed. Golden light surged around him, and the sounds of a dragon's roar and a phoenix's cry echoed. The true dragon and phoenix spirits appeared and broke free from his body, transforming into large beams of light, circling around him and forming a powerful, nearly impenetrable defense. But even after activating the dragon phoenix body to its fullest, Chen still wasn't entirely at ease. He concentrated his thoughts, and the massive light shadow of the great sun indestructible body condensed around him, enveloping him completely. Boom! At the exact moment Chen had fully activated his defenses, the thunder-devouring beast heart, in the distance, finally exploded under his influence. It was the power of an ancient thunder-devouring beast that had absorbed and compressed countless years' worth of thunderbolts. The rolling thunder radiance, like massive tidal waves, swept toward him from afar. Wherever it passed, the very fabric of space shattered. The earth cracked open, and enormous rifts stretched out, swallowing the vast valley whole. Everything in the path of the thunder radiance was reduced to ashes. The forefront of the destruction were the eighth-grade beast spirits. Their dried and rigid bodies offered no protection against such a powerful impact. As the thunder radiance surged forward, the eighth-grade beast spirits were shattered instantly, turning into nothing but ash in the wake of the blast. The only beings able to resist the onslaught were the ninth-grade beast spirits. From within their bodies, vast waves of death energy erupted, managing to repel the thunder radiance for a brief moment. But after that fleeting moment, the thunder radiance continued its unstoppable march, destroying the death energy and ultimately consuming the 9th grade beast spirits as well. The entire world seemed to become a domain of thunder radiance. While the beast spirits were engulfed by the thunder radiance, Chen also had a hard time. Although he had retreated early, he had still underestimated the power of the thunder-devouring beast heart. Even though he was retreating with all his might, he could still see with his own eyes the massive wave of thunder radiance surge toward him from the distance, carrying an overwhelming destructive force that it slammed into his great sun indestructible body with a deafening crash. Bang! In that instant, the entire world shook. Cracks spread across the vast body of the great sun indestructible body, and then, with a violent explosion, it shattered into countless bolts of lightning. Puffed. Even with the great sun indestructible body protecting him, Chen was still blasted back that he coughed up blood, his body feeling as if it might shatter. Finally, with a violent thud, he was sent crashing into the earth, deeply embedding himself in the ground, his bones seemingly crushed to pieces. The thunder radiance continued its relentless assault, obliterating the massive valley completely. Far away, beyond the valley, the 9 Nether group, who were retreating, also sensed the terrifying shockwave. They immediately halted, their faces heavy with concern as they gazed at the thunder radiance sweeping across the sky. What a terrifying force, Han Shan muttered in shock. Even from such a distance, the shockwave was enough to send chills down their spines. If they had been any closer, they likely would not have survived. 9 Nether bit her lip, a trace of worry in her eyes. But after a deep breath, she gave orders, stay alert. Don't let anyone get too close. Mo Feng and the others nodded at this point. They could only trust that Chen had not met with disaster. Meanwhile, in the northern part of the region, on a mountain peak, a man in blue suddenly turned toward the direction of the explosion that he furrowed his brow, sensing an extremely violent surge of spiritual energy. This person, of course, was Bai Ming of the Phoenix clan. Brother Bai Ming, what's that power? At Bai Ming's side, Bai Ming's figure flickered into view. His expression was somewhat horrified, clearly sensing the violent surge of spiritual energy in the world. Such a violent force. It should be thunder power. With such might, even a 9th grade supreme would struggle to bear it. Bai Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Then, a look of realization appeared in his eyes, and he smiled faintly, saying, I must have overestimated that GUYT pushed to this extent just dealing with an 8th grade beast spirit. In his view, with Chen and his team's lineup, killing an 8th grade beast spirit would not be easy. If they wanted to do so without casualties, they would have no choice but to use the thunder-devouring beast heart. Bai Ming was stunned for a moment before suddenly exclaiming with joy, that could use the thunder-devouring beast heart? Such power isn't something any team entering the divine beast planes could have. Besides the thunder-devouring beast heart in his hands, no one else should have anything like it. Bai Ming nodded, his expression growing serious. But the power of this item is indeed terrifying. If that kid had used it on me before, I'd have been in grave danger. But after that, what more can that kid stir up in your hands, brother Bai Ming? Bai Bin grinned. Bai Ming smiled slightly. Without the thunder-devouring beast heart, Chen seemed like nothing more than an ant in his eyes. If they crossed paths again, he would make the kid realize just how foolish it was to offend him. Let's deal with this 8th grade beast spirit first. Bai Ming shook his head, no longer focusing on the ant in his mind, and instead turned his gaze forward. The beast spirit horde that had originally been there had been wiped out by the Phoenix clan's experts. Only one 8th grade beast spirit was still frantically charging, trying to escape. He clenched his hand, and an ice blue feather fan appeared in his grasp. In the blink of an eye, his body vanished from his position. When he reappeared, he was already above the 8th grade beast spirit. He suddenly swung the fan. Swish! The ice blue chill swept out like the wings of a phoenix, transforming into a torrent that engulfed the 8th grade beast spirit. As the cold current passed, it left behind a lifelike ice sculpture. Bai Ming lightly landed atop the ice sculpture's head, his eyes indifferent. He then gently kicked it with his toe, and with a crack, the ice sculpture shattered into powder. A beast heart filled with death energy slowly rose, which Bai Ming casually scooped up. As he toyed with the beast heart, his gaze turned towards the distant horizon, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He hoped that Chen really had the guts to venture into the inner domain. If so, he would show him just how pathetic it was for an ant to challenge a giant beast. In the ravaged valley, the surrounding massive mountain walls and solitary peaks were all reduced to flat ground. The earth was torn apart with deep cracks, resembling an abyss. This immense valley had clearly been completely destroyed. Boom! Suddenly, a massive stone was sent flying, and a figure shot up into the sky before crashing down. His clothes were shredded, his body covered in wounds, and blood stained the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely disheveled. That figure, of course, was Chen. He wiped the blood from his mouth and looked up at the destroyed valley, his eyes filled with astonishment. The power of the thunder-devouring beast heart was just too strong. Chen scanned the area. There were no signs of any remaining beast spirits, clearly indicating they had been entirely wiped out. I wonder how the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus is doing? Suddenly recalling this, Chen's expression changed, and he immediately rushed off. For the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus, he had even used the thunder-devouring beast heart, his trump card. If it ended up being destroyed by the aftermath of the thunder-devouring beast heart's power, he would regret it so much that he'd wish he could die. Swish! Chen sped across the desolate land. A few minutes later, he arrived at the Death Chi swamp. But here, the swamp had also been turned into a muddy lake, bubbling with death chi. Upon seeing this, Chen's heart sank, and he immediately sped up, reaching the center of the swamp. His gaze quickly shot forward, and there, in the midst of the muddy lake, a clear pool of water was still gently rippling. The surrounding black water was cut off, clearly separated. Deep in the pool, a green lotus, as jade-like as emerald, swayed gracefully, emitting a soft green light and radiating an immense vitality. When Chen saw that the clear pool of water was still quietly present in the middle of the swamp, he let out a breath of relief. Luckily, this treasure was unharmed. If it had been lost, he might have been so frustrated that he'd have coughed up blood on the spot. After confirming that the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus was safe and sound, Chen didn't dare to waste any time. The commotion here earlier had undoubtedly attracted the attention of several nearby teams, so he needed to secure the treasure and leave as quickly as possible. With that thought in mind, Chen acted swiftly. His figure flashed and appeared above the pool. He curled his palm and suddenly reached out. Spiritual energy burst from his palm, locking onto the emerald-like lotus at the bottom of the pool. He then pulled forcefully. A cluster of clear pool water, wrapped in mud, shot out from the pool and hovered before Chen. Encased within the mud was the crystal-clear green lotus. A strange phenomenon rippled from the lotus, releasing an overwhelming life force that instantly washed away the intense pain across Chen's body. Even the fractures in his bones seemed to heal at that very moment, leaving behind a tingling, soothing sensation. Chen flicked his finger, sending the mud scattering away. The emerald-like 9 Revolutions Green Lotus then became fully visible. It was only the size of a palm, but it was exquisitely delicate, as though meticulously carved. Most striking of all was the single lotus seed in the lotus's heart, radiating astonishing vitality. Mysterious patterns were etched into the surface of the seed, natural markings created by the heavens and earth, profound and unfathomable. So, this is the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus. Chen marveled at its beauty, unable to suppress his admiration. If this item were to appear in any auction house within the Great Thousand Worlds, it would undoubtedly trigger a frenzy among 9th-grade Supremes. Anyone who obtained it would significantly increase their chances of breaking through the bottleneck of the Supreme stage and stepping into the Earth Supreme realm. Reaching the Earth Supreme realm would change everything. It would be a qualitative leap. A Supreme stage powerhouse might be considered formidable in the Great Thousand Worlds, but an Earth Supreme would be a true overlord. In the Northern Domain, a 9th-grade Supreme might hold a high position within the top forces, but they would never be true rulers. Only an Earth Supreme-level powerhouse could provide the kind of protection that would elevate a top force to true dominance. With such a position would come access to vast cultivation resources, paving the way for greater progress on the path of cultivation. After a brief moment of reflection, Chen carefully stored away the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus. Before leaving, he swept his sleeve, unleashing a surge of spiritual energy that obliterated the pool below. He couldn't afford to let anyone trace the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus to this location. The destructive aftermath would make it difficult for any curious parties to uncover what had been here, preventing potential trouble for him in the future. Only after ensuring the pool was completely destroyed did Chen feel at ease. Without hesitation, his figure blurred into a streak of light as he swiftly departed the area. Not long after Mu Chen left, the sound of cutting wind echoed across the distant horizon. Several teams arrived at the ruined land almost simultaneously, cautiously approaching the scene. They carefully scanned the area with curiosity and vigilance before finally converging on the destroyed pool. Although the pool had been destroyed, traces of lingering vitality still stood out against the surrounding deathly aura, making it clear that something extraordinary had once been here. However, since the scene had been completely wrecked, they could no longer determine what exactly had been there. Left with no answers, the teams could only shake their heads in disappointment before gradually retreating. By this time, Mu Chen had already traveled far from the destroyed site. His figure appeared atop a hill where Nine Nether and the others were anxiously waiting. Seeing Mu Chen return unharmed, they all visibly relaxed. Relief was evident on their faces. After all, without Mu Chen's support, the road ahead would have been much more uncertain. Did you get it? Nine Nether asked with a smile. She could tell from the glint of joy in Mu Chen's eyes that his trip had been fruitful. Mu Chen grinned and nodded. Securing the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus indeed filled him with immense satisfaction. Upon seeing this, Nine Nether did not ask further. She knew that what allowed Mu Chen to take such a risk, and even use his trump card like the thunder-devouring beast heart, was certainly no ordinary object. However, this item had been obtained solely by Mu Chen, and they had contributed nothing to its acquisition, so naturally, the reward was his alone. This thought was not only held by Nine Nether, who was close to Mu Chen, but even Han Shan, Mo Feng, and the others did not question it. They all clearly understood the reasoning behind it. We'll find a place to rest, then head for the Divine Tomb Garden's inner domain, Mu Chen said. Looking at the others, he was in poor condition, and having acquired the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus, he now had to use its power to break through his spiritual energy, pushing it to the level of 7th grade Supreme. Once his spiritual energy reached 7th grade Supreme, coupled with his body that was already comparable to that of a 7th grade Supreme, Mu Chen was confident that no one below the 8th grade Supreme could stand against him. Even if he were to face Bai Ming, wielding a quasi-sane artifact, he would no longer have any fear. The teams that could venture into the inner domain were all top-tier groups, with leaders whose strength far surpassed that of Jin Qingtian. Therefore, Mu Chen had to make another breakthrough in his own strength. Upon hearing this, Nine Nether and the others understood and nodded in agreement. The group continued onward. Using the Annihilation Eye to scout ahead, Mu Chen skillfully avoided dense beast spirit hordes and areas brimming with overwhelming death chi. These places had death chi even stronger than the valley they had previously encountered, and based on Mu Chen's experience, such dangerous places often harbored treasures. However, with the loss of the thunder-devouring beast heart, Mu Chen no longer had any desire to explore these dangerous zones. If he ventured too deep into such places now, it would likely be a death wish. Thus, Mu Chen decisively suppressed his greed and sought out a place with relatively thinner death chi. He then created a stone cave in a solitary peak and entered at Point 9 Nether, and the others spread out around the mountain, guarding the area. Inside the cave, Mu Chen sat cross-legged in front of him, the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus hovered, its fluorescent glow filling the cave. The overwhelming vitality from the lotus spread throughout, causing even the dead grasses that had withered to begin growing again. Then, Mu Chen's gaze fixed on the white jade lotus seed at the heart of the lotus. This was the essence of the 9 Revolutions Green Lotus, and only by fully absorbing and refining it could he use its power when attempting to break through the Earth's supreme bottleneck in the future. However, the terrifying vitality within the white jade lotus seed was far beyond what Mu Chen could handle at the moment. Fortunately, he did not need to refine it immediately. He only needed to absorb it into his body, and, when the time came to break through, he could channel its power. Taking a deep breath, Mu Chen extended 2 fingers, and the white jade lotus seed slowly rose from the lotus heart. He then sent a surge of spiritual energy into the green lotus. The green lotus emitted a brilliant light. The small lotus, originally the size of a palm, quickly expanded, growing to half a meter in size within a few breaths. Resembling a lotus seat, Mu Chen gently landed on the lotus seat. Though it could not be used to absorb or refine spiritual energy, it had the effect of calming the mind and stabilizing spiritual power. It was a treasure that aided cultivation, and Mu Chen, now that he had it, certainly wouldn't let it go to waste. With everything prepared, Mu Chen no longer hesitated. He gazed at the white jade lotus seed floating in front of him, opened his mouth wide, and with a powerful draw, inhaled the seed into his body. The moment the lotus seed entered, a terrifying vitality erupted within Mu Chen's body. His hair grew wildly, filling the cave like waterweed in an instant. The surge of vitality stunned Mu Chen. After all, this was only the initial power leaking out from the lotus seed. If it all erupted, it might have torn him apart on the spot. Fortunately, what Mu Chen needed was only this leaked power. As long as he could absorb and refine it, he should be able to make his breakthrough and elevate his spiritual energy to the level of 7th grade supreme. And with his current strength, Mu Chen was confident that he could control it perfectly. Thus, his cultivation proceeded quietly, the vitality in the cave becoming increasingly vibrant, while Mu Chen was cultivating outside the mountain peak. Xun'er and the others were sitting cross-legged, guarding the area. From time to time, their gazes would shift towards Mu Chen's secluded cultivation spot, and there was a hint of surprise in their eyes. This was because they could sense the overwhelming vitality, and they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the place Mu Chen had chosen for his retreat was far from rich in death energy, and there were few beast spirits. Otherwise, just the vitality alone would have attracted countless beast spirits. After watching for a while, Xun'er withdrew her gaze. She wasn't worried about Mu Chen's breakthrough. The latter had long possessed strength far beyond that of a 6th grade supreme. In addition to the battles he had endured recently, and the time he had spent preparing, this breakthrough was just a matter of course. Once he succeeded, he would truly possess the strength to face by Ming head dash onto that point. Even an 8th grade supreme would not be a match for Mu Chen. Thinking of this, Xun'er couldn't help but feel gratified. Unknowingly, the boy who had once needed her protection at every turn had already surpassed her. When this Divine Beast Plains event came to an end, the elders in the clan would probably no longer dare to look down on him, and she also knew that this was only the beginning. In the future, Mu Chen would definitely become even more powerful. As for those so-called peerless experts, others might not believe it, but she had no doubt at all. She sighed inwardly, then closed her eyes to continue her cultivation. A day later, she suddenly opened her beautiful eyes. Inside the cave, an immense surge of spiritual power erupted, and a tall figure slowly walked out from the swirling spiritual energy.